Good evening and welcome to the Trent Advantage webinar series. Tonight's topic is joint majors. So I'm imagining that all of you that are tuning in tonight have applied to Trent in a joint major program. My name is Sasha Trivet and I'm the manager of recruitment at Trent. And tonight with me I have Dr. Hugh Elton. He's a Roman historian. And he's going to go through a presentation about joint majors for you. And at the end of the presentation, we'll be taking lots of questions. So have your questions ready, and we'll be answering them in queue at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, Hugh, and you can walk us through all of the information that joint major students will need to know.
All right, thank you very much, Sasha. Right, so I'm just going to do my thing, run through the presentation, and sort of talk a little bit about Trent, joint majors, why we think it's sort of be a good idea for you to come here and work with people like me and with Sasha. So we start off with one of these official looking quotations on the screen, and these are the sorts of things that I go to my boss, Moira Howes, who's a philosopher, and I say, Moira, I need something for the presentation. So, so she cooks up sort of something like this. But the important point about it is that we're thinking about the future, that we're thinking about the jobs that you guys are going to go on to when you leave us, and that's the sort of thing that we're thinking about all the time. As we work in the classroom with students, we're thinking, what skills do they need in the future? And so we're aware of that at the faculty level, and my boss, the Dean of Humanities, is very much aware of that as well. And that characterizes every part of the university: science, social science, humanities, etc. So, joint majors, how do they work? Well, you're probably familiar with a single major degree, something like biology or chemistry or physics or history or English. Joint major is just a combination of those two. So putting together history and biology, or math and French, something like that. So lots and lots of different ways to combine the two parts of your major. You can even do it with professional programs, particularly with business, and very common for people to link up business. And we've got some examples on the next slide of the sorts of patterns that you can put together for yourself. One of the questions that people often ask is, do I have to do more work for a joint major? And the answer for that is no. It's exactly the same number of credits whether you do a single major or a joint major. You lose a touch of flexibility because you're getting qualifications in two separate areas, but you still get to take a number of elective credits, so you can get a few fun courses in there. So just a few examples of what you could do, biology and environmental, business and women's studies, and that sort of thing. What is fun is that almost any combination that you can think of, there'll be at least one student at the university doing that. So philosophy and psychology is quite a common one, but I've taught students who are doing joint majors between ancient Greek and Roman studies and biology, for example, or ancient Greek and Roman studies, which is the program I teach in, and psychology. So that's where all my examples come from that. But lots and lots of possibilities of what you can do in there. And there'll be somebody else, guarantee, who's done the same sort of thing as you in previous years, and probably doing it in the same year as you, even now. So just reinforce the list, sort of thing. And one of the things that we're very conscious of is that you can do things at university that you may not have been able to do at high school. So we're very keen on the idea of just exposing you to lots and lots of different intellectual traditions. We're very pleased with the media studies program, for example. That's something that we started about 3 years ago at Trent. Quite a few new hires in that program from the faculty perspective, which of course is my perspective. And that means that you're getting young and particularly dynamic faculty, people who are very much engaged with using but I don't want to make a fool of myself by actually talking about what's trendy in social media now. But the professors there are working with that sort of stuff. We've got a strong programs in Canadian studies, computing, and I've just been talking with the technical support person who's here tonight about his experience in the computing program at Trent. So it's very exciting, sort of comparing notes on faculty that we know and courses that we've got experience with. Strong forensics program, which is rather exciting, and all of that's where you do get the chance to examine the blood spatter room and that sort of thing. So it really is our own CSI school. So all sorts of options that you could be taking at Trent when you come here. And then why would you come here? Lots and lots of different reasons to come. We were just talking about that in this other group in this room before we started, talking about how pretty the campus is. It's a shame we just had a nice sort of textual sort of presentation here. But the campus, I find it is rather nice, and it's just the wildlife, rabbits, deer, that sort of thing, the occasional eagle, if you're lucky, as well as the host of chipmunks. But it's a small, friendly place. And I remember quite vividly in my first year at Trent, about 10 years ago, sitting next to a student at the beginning of the seminar, and we had the standard chit chat that we often have with a student. And Brian was saying to me, I was at a different university before, I'm a transfer student. And he said, I never talked to a professor there. And that was just really, really sad, to hear that, because that getting to know students individually is something that's sort of take great deal of pride in doing that. Quite often the students, people you work with, become friends over time, and they'll take to a repeat course with you, and then you keep in touch with people after they graduate, and that's an awful lot of fun. So that's something we take a lot of pride in at Trent, is the small classes and looking after the students. And that means that when you want to do things like internships, job applications, study abroad, and so on, you can talk to someone that you know and trust, giving you some advice about that, and that person will also write you the reference that you need to get ahead there. So it's sort of building those relationships with professors to help you in the next step of your career. And as I said earlier, we're always thinking about what are you going to do when you leave us? What are the skills that you need so to work and be successful in whatever career or careers, because the chances are you'll have more than one sort of focus in your career as things go forward. We're very much all focusing on those sorts of things for you. So one of the things that people often ask us is, well, what will I do with my degree? What can I do with it? So I've got this sort of slide here, stories of success, and unlike a lot of the other slides here, this is my slide because this is a list of jobs that students I've taught over the past few years have gone on to do. So I teach Roman history, particularly the 4th and 5th centuries AD, when the Roman Empire becomes Christian. But you can see that there's not much correlation between the subject matter that my students have been taking and what sorts of jobs that they've actually been doing. So Helen a few years ago went off to become a doctor, Caris became security manager, Nicole an accountant, Basil field archaeologist, and then he's transferred into a naval officer and this sort of thing. We've also got the academic side, the postgrads in there. Katie off as teacher off in the United Arab Emirates, and Stevie, curriculum developer in Canada, working in northern Canada. And Steve is one of the people I sort of still keep in touch with. He often comes back with stories about adventurous holidays she's taken. Once went off to Svalbard and actually had to take a rifle with her to protect her from polar bears. And so these are the sorts of stories that we can tell about people we work with. And when we say, is there anything special about Trent? It's these sorts of things that we think make Trent particularly special. And it's my turn to do one of these webinars tonight, but all of us can do these sorts of stories about our students. This is a perfectly typical list of things that Trent folk do after they graduate. So it doesn't matter what you take as a degree, you're still going to go out, leave us here, and then be a success and get a good job. As I start to close up, a couple of things to mention. We're particularly interested in sort of attracting a few more humanities students. We've got a small award for new first-year students taking a humanities degree. But Trent is very, very generous in any case when it comes to financial aid. As you can see on the screen, Maclean's has ranked us #1 for scholarships and bursaries in the primarily undergraduate sort of, category. So there's money when you come if you're good, and money that you keep on getting all the way through, while you keep your sort of standards up all the way through your Trent career. So I think that's all that I have to say at this point. So now we're going to pass it over to you. This is your time, and Sasha and I are here to listen to your questions and answer them.
That's right. Thank you, Hugh. And maybe I'll just kick it off with the question from myself. So say you've come in and you want to do a joint major, and in your first year you realize that you really want you like one side of your joint major more than the other. Are you stuck in your joint major?
Are you stuck in a joint major? No, and this is one of the great things about Trent, that some schools declaring a major is a big deal. It requires money and forms and consultation with an advisor. And at Trent, it's remarkably easy. And you just go onto the automated portal, the MyTrent portal, and you just check some boxes, and suddenly you're out of biology and English, and you're into English, and that's all there is to it. And if you want to go back 6 months later, same process. So we'd also recommend it if you're going to do that, you should talk to an academic advisor at some point just to get some advice about that and make sure there aren't any courses missing or things that you haven't thought of. But it's a very simple, very easy process. And we expect that. We've built the system to allow that because in our experience, lots of students aren't quite sure what they want to do when they arrive. So there's no problem in changing. And it's important too that you do what you want to do and the stuff that you enjoy, because then you'll learn better. And one of the things that we're very keen on is talking about learning skills. And we're here to teach people skills, not as much of subject knowledge, but the skills are going to be transferable. So if you learned, I would say that his history is very good, but teaching you about how people think and how to work with people. And working with people is a large part of my life. And I suspect most people spend a lot of time working with people. So that's what we're focusing on rather than how to write enormous papers. That's a part of the job, but only part of it.
So you mentioned academic advisor earlier. Maybe you could just tell us what is an academic advisor and maybe how would they be useful to us as students?
Right. We've got, I think, 5 or 6 academic advisors across Trent. And their job is simply to be guides to the students as to how the university works. And they're not quite as frightening as faculty because their job is only to support and they don't do any grading. So they're there to advise a student, and it's a confidential service. What the consequences of making this academic decision is and that academic decision. Sometimes the regulations are more confusing than they ought to be, and academic advisors will help you work through that. They can talk about if you do take an extra course, what the workload might be. Is that a good idea? Is it not a good idea? If you need to drop a course, you can get some advice on how to put that petition together to the academic advisor. And they may also suggest a few other avenues to get you towards career counselling, if you're having a difficult year, towards counselling services, or towards the academic skills to help you write better papers. So lots of different functions that they have at the university.
Wonderful. So we have a question here from Yash. He wonders if there's any specific deadline to declare a major.
Right, now that's a good question. There's no specific deadline. It works better if you have one declared by the end of the first year, or into your second year is fine. If you're changing majors, say in your third year, that's when you do need to go and talk to a professor or an academic advisor, because you want to make sure that you're graduating in as little time and therefore as little money as possible. And if you have a big track change in the third year, it may take you a little bit longer. So that's the only thing, but that's a good question.
Yeah, and most people tend to make those decisions in their first years anyway, so when they're still safe. Okay, and Megan has a question for us as well. If we're trying to set up for 2 possible combinations like forensics and psychology or physics and forensics, how would you go about doing your schedule? And would there be any assistance perhaps with, registering for courses?
Right. It's nowhere near as difficult as it might seem when you're outside, you're looking into the house. And during the first 2 or 3 weeks at Trent, there's a lot of what I call shopping and dropping. And there are students who are coming into classes and going out of classes. So you could certainly come and take the introductory courses in forensics, in psychology, and in physics. You're all during that sort of first year, and sort out those things as you go. But that's what the academic advisors are also useful for. So you can, and the other thing is that students are often worrying. You might worry at this point about whether there'll be space in these classes.
Right.
And we don't cap first year classes at Trent. There's always space in a first year class, so you'll always be able to get in to stuff. So it's often just a touch confusing. And what we often say with slightly difficult questions is just, oh, don't worry about it. Wait till you get here and we'll sort it out. Because Trent is that sort of place.
Yeah,
So,
it is. And so probably Megan would have maybe 2 forensics courses and then 2 of the physics or the other subject that she's interested in, and maybe like an elective credit in there even.
entirely possible. Yeah, that's lots of different choices. Because I'm a Roman historian, I don't know the physics curriculum quite as well as perhaps I ought to. But you can look at that stuff online, and the liaison office will be happy to help you with that.
And we do have lots of summer orientations happening over the summer, where there will be guidance for registering in courses, and academic advisors that Hugh was talking about earlier are present, so they can walk you through that if you wanted to come to one of the summer orientation processes. Okay, and so Hannah has a question about arts and forensics. Okay, so I'm guessing you've applied into the arts and forensics and want to pursue ancient Greek and Roman studies. Does she have to declare it as her joint major? Well, she's already, I believe, in the forensics and arts. It would just be declaring that her arts program is ancient Greek and Roman studies. So does that make sense to you? That's what I would think.
Yeah, that's right. It's once you start talking about this, it is very, very simple.
Yeah.
In there. And so nothing to worry about. We'd be delighted to have you in the ancient Greek and Roman studies program. That's my program, my own program. We'd love to have you in there. So looking forward to seeing you next year, Hannah, we hope.
Yes, we'll be excited for that. Yash wonders if you can come in with a single major, or perhaps, as most of you are thinking, a joint, and turn it into a double major. And what exactly is a double major then?
Double major and joint major is just different names for the same thing. And can you do that? Yes, you can. I know it sounds as if we're sort of selling the place where you can do everything, but it is actually a place where you can pretty much do everything like that. There is, for example, something that not a lot of students don't know about, but there is a design your own degree option in the handbook, and it's very rarely used, but it is possible for someone who wants to put together a combination that we don't actually do, like your astrophysics and or Acadian or something, could put together a degree program like that for themselves. And that's part of the spirit that Trent has, that it's very much a student-focused institution. And when I first got here, it was not frustrating, but a challenging environment, because Trent's not that keen on rules. And sometimes this is frustrating, you can't always find the guidance you want, but it means it's a place that is adventurous and exciting and on the edge. And that's the sort of students that we want, because that's the way that everyone who works here, they're not normal and boring suit-like stuffy people. We're much more interesting, or at least we like to think we're interesting.
That's right. Okay, so Megan wonders, she's accepted an offer to psychology and forensics, and looks like she's planning to do psychology as an art. And what courses will she need to take? So that's a bit specific, Megan, but I'm thinking that you're probably going to have introduction to psychology. You're going to maybe have a biology or an introduction to forensics in your first year. You may have a stats class, which is often part of the the psychology program. And beyond that, so it's probably like we were talking about the other Megan earlier. You probably have 2 courses that are psych-based, or two courses that are psych-based over the course of a year, and then 2 that are forensics-based, and then maybe an elective credit in there as well. So at the end of the day, you need 5 credits to graduate or to complete 1 full year of study. And half of it's going to be on the psychology side, and half of it's going to be on the forensics. And actually selecting those courses that you're in, the summer orientation team and academic advisors can help you do that.
Yeah, and then in the first year of forensics, I'm just all looking at the university calendar while Sasha is talking. So you'd have to do 1010, 1011, and 1100. And those are just the numbers that we give to the courses. They're all in the book and on the website. And then you look up and sort of see what they are. And 1010 is Introduction to Forensic Science. 1011, Introduction to Crime Scene Investigation. Which does actually get you to sort of understand sort of scientific evidence whilst processing crime scenes in the crime scene house in there. So that's the blood spatter stuff. We actually get you in there in the first year. So all of this sort of stuff, you can just do what I did, which is look the stuff up on the calendar or on the website, and sort of there it is.
Yeah, and we've just posted that for you.
Oh,
So it's very easy to use and it's all online and you can just go and look up by your program. So as a joint major, you're going to need to look up 2 different programs and assess the courses that you will have to be taking in your first year. But it is not complicated. It is quite simple and there is assistance if you need help. Hannah says, thank you. I presume that most courses, first 2 courses were quite, oh, sorry, we missed Andrew as well. Maybe let's go back to Andrew. Is there a cost difference between a single major program and a double major program?
No, they both cost exactly the same because it's the same number of credits.
That's right.
So no cost to you, but great benefit in terms of understanding 2 different disciplines.
Yeah. So just for clarity, Hugh, my understanding is that a joint major, you have about 7.5 or 8 credits in each of your 2 major subjects, and then you have about 5 credits in elective courses.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
to make up your 20?
Yeah, and the numbers vary from discipline to discipline. 9 to 10 is fairly typical for a humanities degree. Sometimes the science degrees ask for a little bit more, not so much in your field, but they'll often ask for a little bit of mathematics on top of the chemistry in there. But everything costs exactly the same, so that you pay for the total number of credits that you take in the degree. So there's no sort of cost difference to you there.
Okay, perfect. Yes, so Hannah, you are correct in your assumption there. And Megan asked, can you take more than 5 classes a semester?
You can. There's a process there which is called, we call it overloading. And a lot depends on how organized a student you are. And we'll let you take an extra credit a semester without any paperwork. After that, there's an appeal process that you have to go through. And the reason that we make it a little bit more difficult to take more than 1 course over the standard load is that it just becomes more difficult for the students. And whenever anything happens, when students are taking 6 or 7 credits, then we often find they start to get into difficulties. And as I sort of say that you get a cold and the papers are late. Your dog gets a cold and the papers are late. Your father's sort of sister's dog gets a cold, and these sorts of things ripple because everything is fairly sort of tightly balanced for a lot of students. A lot of students are working sometimes 20+ hours as well. So we don't want you to get into too much trouble. So you can take more than 5. I wouldn't suggest it's a good idea in the first year. Get through your first semester and just see how you're handling it before you start overloading or too early. But what you can do if you're interested in having a slightly sort of faster progression through is to take courses in the summer. But that's also another way to ease the pressure of sort of the regular year. Take 4 courses during fall, winter, and then take an extra course in the summer. And that still gets you 5 for a year, and you're on course to graduate in 4 years. So there are lots of different ways of working your way through the system. And and again, that's the sort of question you could go to an academic advisor and ask them, say, what do you think about this? And they might say, you could do that, or have you thought about this? And they're there to help you make those sorts of decisions.
So Megan is asking, after students accept their offer, do you get another package with information about the program that they have accepted? Megan, we don't mail out any other paper information about your specific program. You will receive other information in the mail.
Yeah, but what does happen at this time of year, I'm quite used to getting emails from students, and they'll start off, dear Professor Elton, I'm starting at Trent in the fall. Can I ask you some questions about courses? And they always write back, it's like, welcome to Trent, and then I answer the questions. So the faculty are all quite used to fielding questions like that. That we're very aware that for some students, universities are unnatural, frightening places, and we treat them all very casually because it's our home and our office, and we hope it's going to become your home in the future. But we know that at the beginning there's just a lot of strangeness. Some of you are shifting cities, some of you are shifting countries, even. And so there's just an awful lot going on. And don't be fooled by the idea that every student you see on campus knows everything and knows where everything is. They don't. They're just good actors. That's all they are. Yeah. And it's the same in the first year classes. I love first year classes because there's a really big buzz, you know, going on. Everyone's excited because we're all here to start a new semester and to start learning together. But also it's very clear that when you have sort of hands up who's done this, hands up who's not done this, that there's an awful lot of newness for everyone. Everyone starts working, you know, together. And I was talking to the daughter of a friend of mine who transferred to Trent, must have been 4 or 5 years ago, and she just got a job out in sort of Vancouver last week in the corrections service, which has been her lifelong ambition. So Leslie was thrilled, you know, to do that. But Leslie was what we call a mature student. She was about sort of 20 when she came to Trent rather than regular 17. She was worried about not fitting in. And I said to her at this sort of point in the year, I said, you know, don't worry about it. No one will notice. And she did come back later and say, you were right, nobody noticed, because you know, there's a whole range of ages and experiences that we have in the classroom, people coming from all over Canada, all over North America, all over the world, and different educational experiences. We have students who are homeschooled, we have students who went to prep schools, we have students who've gone to public schools, just massive varieties of different sort of students coming in. And we very much enjoy working with that group. Diversity is another of the fun things about Trent.
Yes, and we've just posted, you can email us at liaison@trentu.ca anytime. And if your question is program specific, we can certainly forward that along to the different academic program departments. We can put you in touch with a professor if you would like to be in touch with a professor in your program.
Yeah, and
or an academic advisor.
Can we also just apologise to Megan for spelling her name wrong, that we're working at sort of high speed here. So we've all, yes, the guy who just typed that in is now looking incredibly pained in there. So we're very sorry about that.
Wonderful. And I also feel like it might be a good idea if students do go to the academic calendar online and just read their program pages. I think it would give them a sense of the overview of the program and what the first year courses look like and what they're called, and start to familiarize yourselves with the coding and the names of the program and the numbers. Each program has its own number. Each course has its own number.
You could do that. I'm going to disagree with Sasha here.
Oh no!
I just say it's your summer. You know, enjoy the summer. Get out there in the sunshine. You know, go to the beach or whatever, and worry about all that stuff when you get here. If you are going to follow Sasha's advice, and it is good advice, you know, do it like 15 minutes, 20 minutes about it, and don't worry about it too much. You're not going to be required to memorize those numbers, even when you get here. That you can always just look them up on the screen and print them out.
Yep.
And it's the faculty's job and the university's job to handle that sort of thing. Your job is to learn, to grow as a person. Yeah. And because it just sounded like Sasha was giving you a homework assignment, and I'm not keen on that sort of thing.
Sorry about that.
So.
Some of you might be keen. Anyway, well, it looks like our questions are starting to wrap up. Does anyone have any more questions in the last couple of minutes? No more questions?
No more questions?
Okay.
Well, thanks very much for taking the time to join us this evening. We're always happy to take more questions over the phone, over email, through the website, whichever way you want to sort of get in touch with us. That's our job. And it's a very, very enjoyable job. And we're very lucky to be able to work at Trent.
Yes. Well, thank you, Hugh, for your presentation and your guidance. That's been great. And I just wanted to mention that we do have one more webinar coming up in our Advantage series, and it's on Monday. So next week, Monday, May 30th, we're doing Funding Your Education one more time. And this time we're putting a focus a little bit more on OSAP and some of the questions that you might have regarding all of the funding opportunities out there. We're going to chat on scholarships as well. So please do tune in for that if you have any questions about funding your education. If you haven't been to campus, we're running tours all summer. The residences are open. It's a great time to come and view the campus. It's beautiful. We're just preparing for convocation now, so everything is green and lovely on campus. I think that's it for us. So thank you very much.
Right, thank you.
Have a great evening.